Jim Jones's eyes and voice fell. His hands trembled and split as he rushed from the studio and went straight to enter the office of a lawyer and now divorce filed under the guise of war. Without warning, because what began as a love tale on reality TV simply became a DNA catastrophe, and we're discussing a paternity test, so explosive in addition to shattering hearts. It also destroyed group chats and breached contracts. Mama Jones was throwing furniture. Chrissy Lampkin backstage. Well, she didn't refute it in the 6 released court recordings. Phrases that had the whole internet shouting, "Please forgive me, I did what I had to." You lied about your entire pregnancy, sis. Fabricated schedules. To promote a wedding special, started a company on Ride. Or perish while concealing the reality that could burn dip put to the floor. No, this isn't hip-hop and love culture. Now, this is a scandal that was brought about by Jim's team and the devil himself found next, which you won't believe. Let's note what she signed because of this problem is only beginning. It was intended to be just another typical day in court. Reviewing some issues from a previous contract, utilizing VH1, nothing significant. Just papers and silence till Jim Jones entered, without an entourage, in a sealed envelope. Just him, his attorney, and a look that shouted, "I'm done." Chrissy Lannan had already taken her place at the scrolling through her phone on the table as though Thursday would have been any other day. But when she raised his head and noticed, "The packet in his now that envelope," she said with a palm gesture. Having DNA test findings that would burn down the entire courtroom instead of figuratively, Mama Jones needed to be removed after striking a screen on a display and proclaiming, "Kea, I told y'all she was lying." What the envelope contained, based on insiders in the court, said it was a private Jim Jones paternity test had been canceled. The test is a silent, astute, vicious radar. Wasn't just about Chrissy Lampkin, the youngster, moreover, it was their little secret. ALLEGEDLY, bound to a Chrissy Lampkin, told Jim Jones about the second child. The twist is that she died in the womb. The second child is still breathing and living. Jim Jones is not the one on record. Chrissy, the father of either for years, reads the same fairy tale as Lampkin. Jim Jones and I were figuring out issues, taking a long time to establish an off-camera future while she was-allegedly accepting a fee for falsifying DNA records, clinic employees, and supporting 2 families lie on the internet behind closed doors. Ignited in a few seconds after the revelation that Chrissy Lampkin misrepresented Mama Jones was right to acquire a free gym membership. Then the real bomb went off when a Chrissy Lampkin's voicemail to her, a former publicist, was featured on a gossip show blog where she includes the phrase, and this is word for word if the results of the second test are in. "You're keeping a man from dating negative female. From discovering a baby's truth, so one more tick can be taken out of a non-emotional reunion. Special manipulation at the brand level sabotage, but it goes further than that." Jim's legal team sources assert they have found irregularities in translation of chronological documents. According to reports, Chrissy Lampkin changed her birth documents and improperly utilized ultrasound footage to persuade Jim Jones from years ago that everything was real. According to one of Jim's close friends, it always wondered why she wouldn't let him go to meetings with him. But Chrissy Lampkin's statements were compelling, such as, "I'd like one item that's just for me," or "You put too much stress on me," and let's be honest, Jim Jones trusted her. He's not the easiest man to adore, to be honest. According to him, but devotion was he never faked one thing. So to find out this via voicemail for lab results, phone records, and disclosures, he was heartbroken indeed. Reporters in the courtroom said that Jim Jones was unable to look at Chrissy. When the court questioned Lampkin, "Mr. Jones, do you want to move forward with submitting a legal dissociation in light of this new proof?" He was only Chrissy Lampkin, didn't even blink, cry, or blink. Change in her posture. She just crossed, her arms were folded, and she whispered one line that Jim Jones will never forget. It was never about the baby forever. What does that mean? It was about survival. Might imply the survival of such a fake check, a dream, romance, or reality program existence based on fabricated test? Findings reports state that this was not it, was Chrissy's first time pulling a practical joke. Same like this in 2011, she had a pregnancy scare, which ultimately proved to be a component of a larger discussion with an unidentified VH1 worker claimed to be aware of the ideal time to send the pregnancy card when Jim Jones's numbers fell, he was ready to go, and Mona required a piece of anchor. You can't make this up for the finale. Or perhaps you could. Given Chrissy Lampkin seemed to have done for years what actually reportedly destroyed Jim Jones. The shame wasn't even caused by the DNA deception. The feeling of being a prop in someone else's life, someone else's creation, of building a legacy that was written to work against him. Most court records are now accessible to the public. Because of an image that was leaked, Jim Jones has requested the prompt association of all common business alliances, the complete breakup of reality shows connected to agreements, and psychological harm for deliberate dishonesty and reputational devastation. He's not simply leaving her, his deletion of her is happening just as you. I didn't think this circus could get much more repulsive. Yes, a new character entered Cameron. The attorney for the former Cam gave the judge a sealed folder containing the text. Extra video right before the court's retraction demonstrated that his brother, who was thought to be out of the image, has not disappeared. So what does it signify for the paternity timeline? First, the movie that court, according to sources. It was filmed in 2018. Cameron and Chrissy in Miami together, she told Jim Jones that same weekend. She was in Sedona on a wellness retreat. Indeed, there was a hotel room involved, and 2 toothbrushes. Bill coincided, Jim Jones disagreed. And that's exactly where we begin in part 2 as the court views the Cameron footage. A fresh witness appears and Chrissy's argument breaks down in real time. Given that the DNA test was just the starting, the rest is where things turn the courtroom lights lethal. Sank a bit when the projector started to liveliness, with everyone leaning in, including his bench's unclear timestamp, flashed on the August 14, 2018 screen. 10:42 p.m. Chrissy in the Miami, a hotel corridor Lampin, walking with a gray hoodie. She held her phone with her head down. Her ear was near the camera, and she examined the area before making 2 knocks on Cameron when the door opened. Shirtless, smiling, gasping, and just the entire courtroom changed like that. Since this was more than just a coincidence. So, this wasn't some innocuous thing. This was an old friendship or acquaintance. Evidence of burned and banged doors connections. The film shifted to a distinct viewpoint within the video of Chrissy Lampkin walking into the space. Off her sweatshirt to reveal a leaning in while wearing sweatpants and a tank top, whispering something. Then turning off the screen went dark with no sound and no violence. Video, but Jim Jones was the one who was harmed, stayed motionless, staring directly ahead. If you wanted a break, the judge asked. And Chrissy Lampkin waved it off. Unblinking and stone-faced, they didn't flinch. Her attorney intervened and promptly criticized the movie, claiming that it is circumstantial and fails to prove everything besides. Face-to-face communication, the judge became agitated when your customer stated to the judge that she was in Sedona on that was all it took on this particular day. Contradiction, a false statement on file. And during the court's recuperation from Cameron's attorney presented the conviction that shouts were not done. He gave them a second USB. This one included a purported voice memo that was acquired from an outdated backup account of Chrissy's that the court authorized the use of Chrissy's voice. Slowly, icily, and purposefully for as long as Jim thinks the child is his. Therefore, I have authority, and I won't relinquish it until I understand my position with Cameron 1. The woman in the rear row had her mouth shut. Mom Jones has returned to the room where she started with security holding her chair. Crying once more, although not as loudly, was damaged, and Jim Jones simply shut off his eyes, Nobody, not even the court, moved. Eventually, the judge cleared his throat and declared, "Proceed." And, wow, did they mention a second set of records? According to bank records, $7,000 wire Chrissy Lampkin's transfer to a 2-week private OB-GYN, dating in New Jersey prior to the purported miscarriage description of the private findings handling. She paid for a second translation. Test from the books. Jim's lawyer leaped up right now. Your Honor, immediately. We would like to formally request a move to examine identity theft and prenatal fraud. Hiding anything about the fatherhood assertions that we also plan to submit. These conclusions to the district lawyer's Chrissy Lampkin in the office didn't blink, but her face lost some of its color. For the first time, she appeared small. The judge nodded as a human weak cornered him. Motion, noted evidence accepted. To proceed, and then the unexpected turn that nobody saw surprise was summoned by the court. Observe, a former Chrissy assistant Lampkin was recognized as young. Witness C, anxiously clutching her wallet as if her soul was inside it, and she went into Theston with a faltering voice from 2017 till in 2020. I managed Chrissy at work. Social. Schedules for vacations, and she suspended the judge's personal messaging and asked, "Did you notice any activity pertaining to public or paternity fraud, deceit?" After glancing at Jim Jones, witness C, yes. Chrissy Lamine claimed to have made me delete communications. But Jim first came home after she forced me to take pictures of her holding baby equipment. To send to Mona Scott, despite not being in the courtroom, gasped that she was no longer pregnant. Once more, even Chrissy's attorney looked shocked. And why did she desire those pictures sent? When the judge asked, she said that she needs promo ready. Pictures for the following, the assistant responded to the season pitch. She wanted to confirm that the story prior to the reunion, mine felt pity for Jim. Jones looked at her, not angry, but with pain, as though someone had just shown him a grave. The following was approved by the court. Is there any discussion regarding Cameron? She used to text, and the assistant nodded. I had to pick him up off a hob. She used to say things like Jim Jones is starting to show signs of suspicion, or do not reply till the hour after midnight. She appeared to be living two lives at once. The courtroom was quiet once more, but not on the bloggers on the internet were live on the phones, were active, and hashtags were quickly Chrissy Lampkin. Burner phone trend chart Jim's terrible life was confirmed. Chrissy Lamine deserved better, but she just sat there, her eyes unresponsive. No screams like they were nailed. They sat on the floor, down. And if that wasn't sufficient, the court played a final audio snippet for this one, was given to me by a Love and Hip, a worker in Hop Production, who stated that they recorded it during a backstage incident in which Chrissy Lampkin was off camera. In 2022, you don't need to know about mid-con conversation. Every little surprise keeps guys interested. In check, he receives too much information about leaves, just how they are all the halfway through. The judge interrupts the recording, threw and gazed at his glasses. He only shook his head. In court, without saying anything, was recessed till Jim woke up, slowly left, with Mom Jones trailing behind. By Chrissy Lamine, who was still present. Alone, as if someone had realized the game had at last gotten up. But the chaos had one more surprise to offer as journalists assembled. Outside, one of Jim's previous business associates visited the microphone and said more is on the way. Emails, evidence of money, and a voicemail from a romantic partner, hip-hop producers, demonstrate that the months later, a pregnant narrative was proposed. Prior to shooting, what does Chrissy, in addition to lying to Jim Jones, key in also to America? And all brand deals, immediately conversation, and a fake ring on the re-examination of the finger moment under. Insiders with a sense of fury, BH1 are leaking. Already production notes are being released by stylists. And it's even said that Mona Scott is under duress to deliver uncut footage that could demonstrate the authenticity of the story. Behind the whole arc of pregnancy, and we have not even reached Chapter 3 yet. Where the news court receives stolen emails, financial orders are placed for Chrissy. Accounts and a final act of treachery shatter any chance of a reconciliation since Jim Jones lost more than just faith. The following morning, Chrissy Lampkin appeared, up to court by themselves without any gloss, no producer in her ear, team. Merely her large entourage, chatting strategies, shadows, and a heavier sense of stillness, more than anything she had previously worn before the media called her name. But she refused to move. She strode straight through security to her chair and bided her time since she already knew exactly what was going to happen. Jim's legal team arrived at 9:03 a.m. with a new display. A printed internal thread of emails sent between a currently and Chrissy Lampkin VH1. Executive subject line dismissed here. Jim's story from within timing clues, narrative points, and directions. And the one at the bottom of one thread that caused the judge to furrow his brow was Chrissy Lampkin made a statement that said, "Let's make the pregnancy fear permanent for episode 3. Which gives me time before I must clarify why the trip to Miami is even her own attorney glanced over." Astonished, the judge inquired, "Manan Ken, how are you? You confirm this? Talking?" Chrissy Lynn paused, then replied, "Yes, I sent that, Your Honor." The courtroom didn't need to swallow it all at once. Already felt the shift, and change was fully Chrissy, and not merely no longer a reality star. She was the antagonist. Jim Jones is still in her own series, had remained silent and sat quietly, drinking water occasionally, almost as if the after. The sadness was over. This was just company, but the moment that broke came next. A court technician even wheeled in a search for one more piece of proof and confirmed the time-stamped iCloud audio Chrissy Lampkin's letter from a year ago in the footage. She can be heard conversing with, if Jim Jones ever appears, someone on. Speaker learns about Cameron, it's over. Won't make it through, which is why I said that I had to believe that the baby was his. Something, and I desired for him to stay till the air was greenlit for the spinoff. Was removed from the room without a word, perhaps only the sound of Jim's breath, lawyer persistently pressing. He pushed his chair back and stood up. "We have come to the bench, Your Honor." Presenting this as conclusive evidence that deliberate manipulation of emotions, and the judge of commercial fraud stared and nodded. Directly addressing Chrissy, "Do you dispute the validity of this recording?" she whispered, at which point the dominoes began to fall. Jim's group sent out an official action to freeze every joint accountant assets, pending additional investigation, which the judge approved, followed by the disclosure that federal auditors were starting to investigate Chrissy's The Business submits. Charitable donations and digital exchanges associated with her brand. Chrissy didn't receive anything from the court clerk. Disagreement avoidance or sob when the lawyer gave her a large subpoena packet, sufficient to shatter a windscreen. Looked weary as a woman at last understood she was now being written by the plot she created. Returning with court orders, evidence, files and invoices that she was unable to remove. But it didn't stop there. But Chrissy's the public's perception was deteriorating inside the and was outside the courtroom, destroying her brand like a bunch of Instagram accounts. For wolves that had her former backers were flipping. Chrissy Lampkin's team modified the captions, tricked us all into thinking Chrissy was overflowing with parallel comparisons of clips in which Chrissy Lampkin pretended to be sad throughout the pregnancy. However, the actual timing showed a distinct storyline. That is, the most bizarre part was an internal conversation that was disclosed. Video VH1 demonstrating the laughter of producers. Regarding pregnancy arcs in a single sentence, she assured that it would land like a punch. Gave us ratings after having a baby, the conversation. Therefore, this wasn't only treachery yet. A production-wide performance intended for audiences motivated by falsehoods and purchased with sentimental funds. Jim Jones never consented to pay for, and when the judge finally looked up at him, "Do you have anything to add?" he asked. "Before we conclude the hearing for today." He got up and moved to the middle of the room, inhaled deeply, and said, I only want peace. I'm not looking for retribution. I want my tale told and my time back. The proper manner." He then left. "It's just a guy, no drama." No look back, running from the wreckage of a life that was, though Chrissy Lampkin was never genuine, completed yet. As soon as the court concluded, she, the same publicist who left the voicemail, according to sources, a statement on Chrissy spoke on her behalf, admits she was emotionally harmed, tempting to avoid watching TV and focus on privately rebuilding.